What is deconstruction in gastronomy? I've said the word gastronomy. I don't know what the hell it means.
It's one of those things which catch on,
Yeah.
and then they stick around
Yeah.
for a long time when they shouldn't.
Like, I question the produce every day.
South Asia is definitely having a moment in many, many ways right now. All of this is helping sort of drive that interest and attention towards South Asia, and then food becomes a very natural sort of thing that goes along with all of this.
Sameer, it's so lovely to do this with you.
Thank you
You
for
are the
having me.
most sought after man, actually. Now
Hardly,
with
hardly.
Papa's. You know, I've got you here because I need a table at Papa's, right? Which is impossible. So let's start with you've done an MBA. You've done chemistry in college. So, you know, that's an entirely different journey that you started with. Tell me about that.
So I think life kind of happened in a pretty linear fashion growing up. I grew up a little bit all over, but mostly in Delhi. My dad's in the corporate world, my mom's a teacher. So the advice was always that do something where you check the boxes, so to speak. And they were extremely supportive and thoughtful throughout, but I think this love for food was always there because I grew up in a family which was absolutely obsessed with eating. Like every meal was spent planning the next one. And the reality was that even though I wanted to do something in the world of food, there was no clear-cut sort of way to do it other than to go to hotel school. And at that time, I think that's where the quote-unquote parental hats kicked in. Like, no, choose this college, no, think of this, think of that. And that's kind of what happened. So chemistry happened because I really wanted to go to St. Stephen's College at that point. The MBA happened because it was the logical next thing to do.
And you did it straight out of college?
Straight out of college.
Yeah.
Would I do that again? Probably not, because as a 22-year-old sitting in an organizational behavior class when you've never studied never worked before, it just didn't, in hindsight, it doesn't make sense. But I will say, many, many years later, that I can draw a straight line from all those experiences to what I do now.
Yeah.
Everything involving food is to do with chemistry. I just wish there was a professor that had kind of sparked that thought while I was studying. I probably studied a lot more chemistry back then. And I think today Hunger Inc., as our company is known, is sort of 500 people strong. So very much the foundation set both at IMK and then at Cornell are tremendously helpful, tremendously helpful.
But tell me, Cornell, what did that do for you? First, you met your partner,
Yeah.
right?
Yash was my classmate there, so I think that was one big one.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, when I look back, I can think of two things it did. One, it kind of opened up a world in terms of academics for me, which I was completely unfamiliar with. So, like it or not, the Indian educational system is very much
Pigeonholed.
Yeah, and then you do
Absolutely.
a certain number of things, you do them a certain way, you regurgitate it in an exam, and you're done, right? What it doesn't do is like teach you to question things. And there are a couple of professors at Cornell who were like instrumental in helping me sort of change that aspect. And two, Cornell became this gateway to working in New York, and I think I got some really great advice there that if you want to run your own restaurants, go work in operations, because until then my journey had very much been, after an MBA gone to Citibank, then I kind of segued into the restaurant world, but in a very much finance / marketing, jack of all trades kind of role, which I played for a small company in Delhi. And the reality was, even then, operations or understanding the nuts and bolts of the business was not what I had been able to do at that point. And I think that going into New York City, which is like the sort of toughest market for restaurants and the most competitive, the quality, the standards, everything, I think it was very hard to settle into. But once I was able to settle into that environment, and it took a while, and I'm so glad I had the support system around me that allowed me to do that. When I look back, the confidence it gives me now and has continued to give me, that is something that was a complete game changer for me personally.
So working in America, you started at a very sort of base level, right?
Yeah, so I was in a management training program
Yeah.
for a restaurant group run by Chef Daniel Baloud, who they have a number. I think the company's called Dinex.
Yeah.
Sort of started over there, and then fortunately got an opportunity very quickly, because actually that was what I really wanted to do right after Cornell, was work with Danny Meyer. I read his book, Setting the Table, and that had like opened my eyes. Like I was like, okay, restaurants can be something very different from what one had sort of experienced in India from a work perspective, and it really just opened my eyes. Unfortunately, the timing of graduation and where their project was didn't quite match, because I had actually gone and interviewed with Chef Floyd at that point, and their project had got delayed. But luckily, a few months later, we reconnected and the project was back on track, and somehow I kind of made my way back there.
Yeah.
And sort of the best experience I could have ever asked for. To work directly with Floyd, as well as Danny and the rest of that team. They truly sort of epitomize like what running restaurants at the highest level looks like, right? And to be immersed in that for over a year and a half was just something magical, because there's so much of this business which is not rocket science, but if you surround yourself with the right people, the amount you can imbibe and amount you can learn is just phenomenal. And I think that was truly a foundational experience for me personally again.
Yeah. But tell me, you know, when you work in the US and you work in hospitality, in the restaurant business, in anything really in the US, what does that do for you as a kid, as a young boy who's basically faced a life in India, which is a pretty sort of standard life.
Yeah.
And also parents, everybody saying, okay, restaurant business, but it's not...
Bank chhod ke parathe bechne ja rahe ho, is what my grandmom told me.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and then you go to the US and your eyes open to endless possibilities.
Absolutely.
I mean, do you find a cultural shift that happens within you after you've spent that kind of time?
100%, it has to. I think the way you approach many aspects of life changes, but to me, like I was saying, one thing was that confidence, in the sense that, again, I feel this was my journey where you're always kind of like subsumed to authority, like you are not questioning someone telling you something about you, right? And you don't need to be disrespectful, but you're just not taught to question, you're just supposed to accept. I think that was one big change. Two was the directness of thinking and being able to say that, okay, if you're talking to a colleague, like, I need this done, like, you're not like waddling a whole sort of journey to get to the point kind of thing. So those cultural sort of shifts definitely do happen. But I think more importantly, it's the idea that
Anything is possible.
Not just anything is possible, but like the way in which you want to do it, it matters almost as much as what you want to do, right? There is a certain bar of quality of thinking which holds us in good stead even till date, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, funnily enough, Chef Floyd, Yash, me, Thomas when we started, Hussein, Girish, who leads the kitchens and all the product innovation at Bombay Sweet Shop. Funnily enough, the one tie we all have is having worked in New York and in the US.
Oh, wow.
So it almost gives us this, it almost gave us this shared language in a way. I don't think we planned it that way, but there is this shared language and shared sort of experiences, which is foundational at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think seeing now, as you ask me this question, when I think of it, it probably has helped in some way, shape or form. Now, exactly what, I don't know, but I think having that sort of the idea that you're on the same page when you're talking about, like, I need this at this quality, right? I need service to run like this. I want the hospitality to feel like this. We've been to the same places, we've felt the same thing, and we align so quickly that it makes a big difference.
And actually, you know what? At the end of the day, when you learn it that way, and that whole perfectionism that comes into operations and quality, also leads to a more sustainable and longer term business, which has now been proven with the Bombay Canteen, which sort of continues and continues and continues. to draw in crowds.
And that's the thing about our business, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's actually, the misnomer is, oh my God, you're in this creative field. No, the misnomer actually is, it's about 10% of creativity. It's 90% about consistency.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And how do you get that going?
So, Bombay Canteen, I mean, in fact, my son actually came to Bombay Canteen because Slash, Guns N' Roses, the
Yeah,
band,
he was there a couple of weeks back.
they were there and they
Yeah.
were all trying to stalk him and stuff. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's become even a tourist destination. People come in to Mumbai, and I've gone there, and there are so many foreigners as well,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So the origins of it, it's obviously very nostalgic. You have a dish like eggs Kejriwal, which is a Willingdon dish.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Bombay dishes in there, right? But why canteen?
You already answered it. We wanted to tap into an emotion of a place which pretty much everyone has a memory of, right? At the end of the day, we've all experienced a canteen in some way, shape, or form. Actually, the original name was supposed to be Tiffin Club. Funnily enough, the concept was still rooted in the emotion of being someplace, but having grown up, I grew up in Delhi, Calcutta, Bangalore. Yash grew up in Pune. Floyd was here in Bombay and Goa. We all had this experience of like it or not, the club culture of these various cities where you went and you sort of community gathered, and it was. And for us, the Bombay Canteen was never supposed to be just about the food. It was entirely about the emotion that it leaves you with, and that emotion comes from community. The name went out of the door because about a year before we were opening a restaurant called Tiffin, I forget, somewhere in BKC it kind of opened, and that's when we went back to the drawing board, and kind of Bombay Canteen emerged out of that, which, funnily enough, I think is much more suited now that I look at it, because
actually, we
being
all
rooted in the
miss the-
city gives us so much inspiration at any given time that we love it.
And we all miss the name Bombay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this sort of takes us back. But you have very innovative dishes there, right? It's a twist on everything. Actually, all your food is a twist on India
Correct.
and Indian favorites.
It's
and
our
Bombay
version of
favorites,
it. It's our version of it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your version of it. Give me an interesting story about how one of the concoctions came about for Bombay Canteen.
I'll give you a concoction of something that failed miserably and kind of led to a certain way of thinking. On the opening menu, we had a dish which was a pasta dish, which again, in Indian restaurant serving a pasta dish. But at that time we'd made a rasam made with prawn heads, so you get a lot of umami, etc. from the prawn heads, and then it kind of reminded us of like eating Maggi, like when you taste the broth, because again Maggi has a lot of umami, like it or not, MSG is there, and that's kind of what you naturally get from when you sort of make a broth out of prawn heads. And being able to sort of bring that together, we were super excited about it. We would do these test dinners in the beginning, people, when it was a one-on-one, 10 people eating, you're really explaining the dish, people get it. But actually when we moved to the restaurant setting, we realized that you will read a menu, you don't understand what's a pasta dish doing in this thing. I think the nomenclature and the story, what it made us realize that, and we couldn't explain it in detail to like we were a busy restaurant right from the start. So yeah, of course we'll explain it to you, but sometimes you're like, okay, I don't understand what I'm eating, right? Like that's people's natural reaction, and I don't understand what I'm reading. We realized a couple of things over there. One, the storytelling is so important in terms of being able to take someone on that journey, especially when we are doing something which is so drastically different from what you're used to. You're used to go to an Indian restaurant, and think of Indian restaurants back in 2015. You either went to some version of Copper Chimney or you went to an Udupi restaurant and it was North Indian, South Indian. This idea of regional cuisine just didn't exist at that time. You went to a thali place and you went to other thing, but to go for a night out and get regional food just didn't exist. And it made us realize a couple of instances, like the prawn rasam was like a classic example of this in our minds. We realized a dish has two aspects to it when you want someone to emotionally connect. We call it form and flavor. You can play with one, but as soon as you play with both, you create something which no one connects with.
Right.
So the prawn rasam was a great example of what no one connected with. Like in our minds, it was Maggie, but no one saw Maggie because
Yeah.
who thinks of prawns when you're eating Maggie, right? Like
Yeah.
if you nerd out on it and you talk about umami and etc., yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And we learned from that experience. We learned a lot from that experience. So to fast forward to when we were creating Bombay Sweet Shop, we very much applied this. So we now have one of our most, which I love, is the Bombay Bhel Chikki, right? The bhel is in the form of a chikki, but the flavors of the bhel are intact. So you're used to a new form, but the flavors are absolutely intact. And funnily enough, we turned 10 years at Bombay Canteen this year, where we spent a lot of time.
Congratulations,
Thank
yeah.
you. We spent a lot. We've spent the year not just celebrating the success, but the failures. So we bought the prawn rasam back. And funnily enough, we now know how to fix certain things. We didn't bring it back as a pasta dish, but as a ramen. And it just, like a ramen now people are used to in Bombay,
Yes.
10 years in. And there you're used to seafood and a noodle dish with seafood, etc. But we did it with sort of Indian flavors in there. So very much still our version, but life comes full circle in a way.
What's the most popular dish there?
I would say pretty much still the eggs Kejriwal. I think the barley salad is hot on its heels still.
Yeah.
And Kejriwal is a classic example of people just recognizing comfort, right?
Yeah.
So
You wouldn't have anticipated this kind of response.
no, we didn't. Not at the beginning for Bombay Canteen for sure. I think we actually designed the whole restaurant assuming it wouldn't be full all the time. There were very specific design decisions. We put in 2 AC systems, for example, so that we could switch one off and save electricity. Never needed to, luckily.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so from that perspective, it's been sort of really heartwarming.
I mean, it's the visual of someone opening a restaurant and sort of doors have opened and you're waiting in anticipation. Of course, you would have had bookings and you would have had friends and family.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
let's say in the first week, you're waiting, doors open, with bated breath, with all this effort you've put in. And to be rewarded in this way, year after year, as you've said, 10 years now. Obviously, as you said, 90% consistency, 10% creativity. Right? So that was Bombay Canteen. You went into Pedro, a twist on Goan cuisine, which is also doing very well. You launched Bombay Sweet Shop. You have Veronica's and Papa's.
Correct.
Tell me about Bombay Sweet Shop. I mean, of course, Pedro is also a big favorite. And I think it satisfies your non-vegetarian sort of
Heart.
Correct.
Correct.
But tell me
That
about,
being said, the misnomer there is Goan cuisine actually has some amazing vegetarian food as well. The GSB community, etc. And we have all of that as well. So I think the idea with both Bombay Canteen and Opera is always to show that cultural inspiration of those regions and India at large and see how you can make it relevant to today's day and age. And actually that's the thought that continued into Bombay Sweet Shop.
Yeah.
2 things happened for us and what kind of led to Bombay Sweet Shop. One was this understanding that we were ambitious. We wanted to do something more on the scale front.
Like this would allow you to scale up.
Yeah, but I think the reason we chose this versus saying more restaurants was specific. And this is where, like, again, that banking hat of mine kind of came into play for me personally. And of course, this was a group effort in terms of the thinking with Yash and Floyd and everyone else. That actually, when you take a restaurant in India, 2 things happen which don't allow for scale. One is the lack of great real estate at scale. With the right demand generators, price points, etc., etc. When you actually analyze the market, there's actually a great scarcity for it. And 2, actually, we have Indian food everywhere, but I am 100% sure the way my house cooks the same ingredients versus your house cooks the same ingredients is vastly different. And that means every city actually is a different country that you're going into in terms of behavior. And scale is even more a function of process. So how do you put something into process which needs to be tweaked everywhere? And a restaurant like Bombay Canteen or Pedro needs to be then constantly tweaked, which again is the antithesis of scale. And really
Because you have to adapt to every market,
exactly.
every city in a different way.
In a
Like
different
in the
way.
north, you'd have to tweak it with more sort of
Yeah,
heavier
absolutely.
flavors. And
Not just heavier flavors, but also the timing, right? Here
Yeah.
in Bombay, like, Pedro gets busy at 5:30 every day. As in, you've been to Delhi, there's no chance anyone's walking into a restaurant. But that's because of BKC. BKC people come from 5:30 to 8 because they want to avoid the traffic, and then there's a second rush that happens, etc. So every neighborhood, even in Bombay, behaves very, very differently.
Correct.
Right? But at scale, when you want to scale something, it has to be a function of process. And that's where the idea of doing a product came in. And then something funnily enough happened in our lives in 2016 as we were opening O Pedro. Right before O Pedro opened, Chef Floyd was opening Pav Wala in New York, and we were helping him. Yash was traveling a lot more than I was there, and he had two experiences. One as in basically he was taking hopping flights via Paris and then via Istanbul. He'd been to neither country, but every time he was on the layover, he wanted to pick up a piece of that country, and typically he would pick up food. So in Paris, you picked up mustard, you picked up cheese, you picked up other things. Istanbul, obviously, Turkish delights and baklava, and that's where kind of the light went off. There's nothing that exists in India. When we go abroad, we like take chai. We'll take masalas, but you have to do something with it. In the industry, we love taking something alcoholic. So it used to be Old Monk, right? This was before the wave of like craft distilleries, etc., sort of picking up. And we were like, okay, like this actually, the sweets sector and category reminds us of what Indian food represented 5 years ago when we started working at Bombay Canteen. It was a blank canvas. No one had thought of innovating on it. We have this one, usually when we're talking to our teams, etc., and telling them the genesis story of Bombay Sweet Shop, we have this slide. I'm a 90s kid, like you started off with like that small dairy milk which used to come. Then you typically had that uncle who went and bought Hershey's Kisses. Then it kind of moved to Ferrero Rocher. Then life moved to macaroons and cupcakes, and now we are in the bean to bark era of chocolate, and now Indian bean to bark has started. The Kaju Katli remained the Kaju Katli. Nothing ever changed.
Yeah.
So that to us was the opportunity, where no one had ever sort of thought of innovating on this. So we actually started working on it pretty much as O Pedro was opening. The idea started fermenting in our minds right at that time. But we again knew, going back to our capability, that no one on the team knew how to make mithai. Luckily at that time, because at that time the team was Chef Floyd, and under him Thomas was handling Bombay Canteen, Hussain had taken over O Pedro, but we knew we needed someone who specialized in the pastry and sweet side. So Chef Girish we had a meeting with him, and he also had an interesting life experience in his mind, because before he went to the Culinary Institute of America, he kind of worked for a few months at a mithai shop in Mangalore where he's from, and he'd gone to Baksha over there. And he'd always thought of the connection between Western technique and Indian technique.
Yeah.
So that kind of how the meeting of minds happened.
Amazing.
And we traveled the length and breadth of India for almost 2 years learning traditional technique. Because Floyd would always say, till you don't take time to understand tradition, you can't innovate. And that process took about 2 years, and then we finally opened in March of 2020.
Because mithai is almost like a soul connection for people.
Absolutely.
They think of their grandmothers.
Absolutely.
They think of culture, traditions, festivals.
Yeah.
So to mess with that
Yeah.
and tweak it was a big idea.
It was a big idea, but I think we were very confident to do it because we'd been already doing that with Bombay Canteen and O Pedro. It wasn't new to us.
Sure. But now, in fact, Bombay Sweet Shop has taken off in a big way, right?
It
like I read recently, like revenues of Bombay Sweet Shop have touched almost 40 crores or 35, 40 crores.
Yeah.
Whereas Hunger Inc. is an 80 crore, 90 crore company, right?
We are about 110 now.
110.
110.
But Bombay Sweet Shop very quickly, because of the scale and the online and the products and sort of corporate, is now almost reaching half your revenues.
It'll probably overtake the restaurants this year.
So this, and you're doing catering also with Bombay Sweet Shop now, right?
Bombay Sweet Shop and all the restaurants actually.
Yeah.
All the restaurants.
Yeah. So it's cool also because you're doing Bombay Sweet Shop, which you love, but then sort of the margins and revenues of that allow you to also experiment with restaurants. In a
Actually,
sense,
both are kind of symbiotic.
Yeah.
So our thinking always has been the restaurant, and then if you get into the economics of the restaurants, typically you need the capital to set it up, and then if it's well run, they are cash on cash businesses as they are
Yeah.
known, right? And then that actually allows for a growth business like Bombay Sweet Shop to run together.
Yeah.
Because as you're scaling, you need capital, so that kind of fund helps
Feeds
fund,
into each
helps
other.
fund, and that sort of portfolio flywheel, for the lack of a better term, really,
Yeah.
really helps.
That's the Citigroup banker in you speaking,
There you
who
go.
was
Yeah.
specializing in mortgages, right?
In mortgages.
So that must really help you with real estate.
It does.
But real estate in Bombay, you keep expanding in Bombay, and the real estate in Bombay keeps getting more expensive.
I wish it could go the other way. I wish it would. I doubt it ever
How
will.
much of a challenge is that, Sameer?
I think the challenge.
See, now Bombay Canteen, you've been there for 10 years.
Correct.
So I would imagine like the rent, I don't know if you've bought the space or if you're
No, it's on rent. It's on rent.
It's on rent.
The thing with this aspect of the business, which I again realized working in New York as well as a couple of experiences here in India, is it's so important to build a great relationship with your landlord, right? And it needs to be not a transaction, it needs to be genuinely a partnership. So we experiment with different structures, whether it's revenue share or other sort of structures, where both Yash and I are big believers that incentives should align, right? At the end of the day, if the incentives are not aligned, and if when we do well, they should do well, and if we need help, they can come to our help. And that's exactly how it played out in the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
We were hit by a once in a generation kind of calamity. And I always say that, but for everyone, I always say it takes a village to run a restaurant, and even more so to run an organization. If everyone hadn't rallied around us, whether it's our landlords, whether it's our other partners, etc., we wouldn't have made it through. And I think because that incentives are aligned, so yes, real estate is it challenging? Absolutely. But what do you do about it? Like we are a
And the thing
retail
is-
business at the end of the day,
And you
need
want to be in Mumbai.
Yeah, we want to be in Mumbai.
You're not sort of going to
No,
tier
not
two,
on the
tier-
restaurant side. I think Bombay Sweet Shop will definitely make that leap in the next year or two. But
in
the
the
restaurants are very much focused on
As
Bombay.
you explained, because it's very regional
Yeah.
in terms of a palette.
Absolutely.
You lost a mentor. You've mentioned Chef Floyd's name about 10 times in this interview. I can see how much he still remains with you. You lost him in COVID,
Right.
tragically. Not only is it a personal loss, it sort of is a loss to your business and possibly your future at that point.
Correct.
How do you go on?
I think even when I look back, will we ever kind of get over that loss?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think it's that cliche, right? Like time heals all wounds.
Yeah.
I think it just makes it easier to accept it, but that wound remains. Like I strongly believe that grief remains. It's a question of how much and what waves does it come, right?
Yeah.
So I think on the personal side, it'll always be there. I think I think he gave me my first start. I still remember in my interview with him back in New York, he kind of gave me that wind under my wings, saying like, "Oh, if you ever go back and decide to do your own restaurant, I'll do it with you." Like he was probably, who knows if he was serious or not, but I did make it happen. We did have that conversation 3 years later, and luckily it all worked out on that front.
Yeah.
But I think on the organizational side, like I think we've just truly, like under his mentorship was Hussain and Girish and others who truly then stepped up at that time, right? In 2020, like these guys stepped up, and how to take charge. And I think, did we ever imagine we'd be running a 500-person organization? No.
Yeah.
But we are now asking ourselves the question of how do we want to run that 500-person
Yeah.
organization. The big thing I take away from having worked with larger companies and different kinds of companies is I usually used to walk away from it thinking that I want to do my own thing because I wanted to run away from it. The processes, the systems, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the question we always ask ourselves is, how do we create a different kind of organization where people want to stay for a long time? And it's a constant conversation. And a lot of, like I was talking about, New York became a common language. Similarly, I think Floyd and I, having worked in the same company, became like a good sort of starting point of intuition of how we want to run the company. And then Yash had his own point of view, and three of us kind of operated from that intuition. Now, as we scale, that intuition needs to become intention. So now you need to think through how you talking about culture, how you're talking about systems within the company. The meeting I was in right before is literally, we had Bombay Sweet Shop now has a significant B2B kind of side to it, but how do we get all the teams on the same page? And literally we were talking about like, how do we ask the right questions of ourselves before we go out? And because it's very easy to just go out and start doing, I need to go meet 5 people, I need to go do this, I need to go do that. But how do you take a step back and you slow down a little, you think about what you're doing, and then you sort of start moving forward. And these things are new to all of us. So there's no...
Because you've not reached the scale before.
Yeah, we've not reached
these
the scale.
numbers you've not seen before, and now you've seen them quite quickly in the last couple of years.
And in 2 years, we will be at a scale which we've not seen before. So that iterative process is, I think, what is important more than anything else.
There are so many restaurants opening now, and people in Bombay, where you choose to remain, are well-traveled, have tremendous exposure, have even upped the game of food in their own homes.
Correct.
Right? Every month there's a restaurant launch. How do you sustain? And firstly, what is important today now for a restaurant? Consistency, as you said.
Absolutely.
Whenever you go in, the experience should be the same or similar with the food that you're tasting. But what else? How important is storytelling, art, vibe, music?
I think all of it comes together, right? I think the most important thing is the hospitality you get or feel. You don't get it, you feel it. I think hospitality, like design, is seamless when is happening well.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Seamless hospitality.
Seamless hospitality.
Yeah.
And it can be in as we think of it as in steps. And the steps are like, you have certain hygiene steps, like I need to get you your menu on time, you need water, you need to be taken care of, etc. And then when you're really good at the hygiene stuff is when you're able to then take, what is the quality of conversation you're having with the guest? Well, how are you reading their table and the mood on the table to say that, okay, these guys are here for a quick lunch, they're in a work meeting, let me not go and tell them like 6 things about each dish. Like it's about recognizing that not one size fits all, but if there's a group that is super into their food, like how do you take them on the journey?
Because your wait staff actually makes eye contact, tells the story of the food.
It's been the biggest thing that we've worked on. And actually you were asking me earlier, what was the difference between the US and here? I think learning, being in that environment where you're having a conversation as equals is versus here where service is considered servitude in a lot. It's just culturally what we believe in. That is the biggest cultural shift actually, which I didn't mention earlier. And training that out and giving the confidence, saying that no, you can walk up to a table and doesn't matter if he's the biggest banker in the country, you can still have that conversation as an equal. Right?
Which is so cool, because that's what they do in the West.
Yeah. And for me, like my favorite thing to do when I'm traveling is go sit at the bar and chat with the bartender and have a meal there, right? Like so.
And these are young guys coming out of like hospitality schools now, culinary schools.
Absolutely.
They are not in servitude.
No, not at all.
And they should not be.
Absolutely.
You know, but you must be dealing with that privilege on a daily basis in restaurants, and
always happens.
Must have thrown out a few people who were rude, etc.
Absolutely.
And you, I guess, continue with that challenge, but you sort of navigate
And
it.
I think that is the human condition,
That is
where you find service being offered, you will invariably kind of encounter entitlement.
Especially in India, right? Papa's, okay? That one restaurant that you're here on this couch for.
Correct.
So I get a reservation.
You know the hack though?
No.
There is a hack. Just put your name on our cancellation list. We get cancellations all the time.
Okay, fine.
And
Everyone listen.
So many people have actually just got the call and they come and they've left really, really happy. I know, see the thing is it's 12 seats. There's nothing I can change about it. We can serve only 48 people a week.
Yeah.
And that is...
But that's just strategically wonderful, because you've
But there was no
created-
strategy to do that.
But it's a ultimate, it's scarcity. You see that everywhere now, that scarcity. Oh, I can't get a reservation. Now, it's besides the point that you've created a gastronomical experience, which is, sort of incredible. And how many courses? I think
13 usually, 13 or
13
14.
courses, extremely sort of artistic and creative and all
It's
that.
theater. It's theater, genuinely. And I think that's where I want to just say one thing on that front. Few people in the last year have said, oh, is the trending concept now scarcity? I'm like, no, actually that was never the concept, that was never the strategy.
Yeah.
Actually, we wanted to create this immersive experience, and Hussein wanted to cook a certain way, and the space which we wanted to do it was that size, that
But
only...
it's the right amount of community.
Correct.
Where they're all together as a group.
Correct.
Synergistic.
Exactly. It's a
and
12
enjoying that
like
experience.
you go to Tokyo, you go to this thing, you go for an omakase meal, you'll have 3 seats, 8 seats. That's because that's the relationship between the performer and the audience, right? And that's how it needs to happen. So that was the thought, and we are very fortunate that people have loved it. People want to come dine there, and everyone will get. Believe me, the thing we open restaurants for is to feed people and make them happy. Unfortunately, the reservation system gets talked about more than the food, but that's life, I guess. That's life.
No, but look, I mean, you've had every celebrity, even I think the Instagram head. Had come to India and he came there with Deepika and Ranveer. And then that exploded. I mean, has pretty much everyone eaten at Papa's or Bombay Canteen, or like who are the famous people who've come? I know Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses, we had part of the Coldplay band had come in. As in, people keep coming in. Like, it's not like we keep like absolute track of who's coming in, but we are really happy that it is a pit stop for everyone to enjoy what food in India can be and truly sort of appreciate it. So.
And that helps you?
Absolutely. See, at the end of the day, let's face it, we are in a world where attention is important for every business. And does it help in that regard? Absolutely, it helps. Do we go about intentionally being like, oh my God, I need to feed A, B, C, D? No, we don't do that. It happens naturally, and that we're grateful for that.
But in a city like Bombay, of course, you have this amazing new restaurant landscape of deconstructed food, etc.
Sure.
But the ones that have stood the test of time are your New Yorkers, Copper Chimney, Shiv Sagar, Swati.
Correct.
These are the bones of Bombay, if you will. The vegetarian audience is also the bones.
Correct.
In many ways.
Absolutely.
Right? But you feel now there's an audience for everything?
More and more so.
Yeah.
Because of kind of something you pointed to earlier, like people are traveling more, people are experiencing more, and people are demanding those kind of experiences now in India.
Yeah.
5 years ago, would a Papa's worked, or even a Veronica's, would a sandwich shop, which is 28 seats, be serving like pastrami?
Again, Veronica's can't get a table.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that people now want these products, and I think they're willing to wait, and then also pay for it.
What do you think of the explosion of Indian food that has taken place in the Western world? Like,
it's high time.
Like Chef Vikas, you have Samyukta Nair in London doing what she's doing with Jamamar.
You have Ronnie and
Bombay
Chintan and Chef Vijay at Sema.
All these guys, right? So especially in the US and the UK, right? You're seeing...
Or even Bangkok. Like,
or even Bangkok, of course. But Bangkok for a while, I think.
Yeah, for a while. You're right.
But the US...
In the West, for sure, it's a more recent phenomenon.
And like, for example, like Dishoom and all have become sort of... At some point, Dishoom was more popular than any other restaurant in the UK.
Yeah.
So everyone's taking to that palate in these Western worlds. What do you think about that?
I think it's great.
But the palate is different. Like the food there is different. It's a little more masala. It's a little more...
Yeah, so I think that is fine. Like listen, if I move from Bombay to Delhi, I need to adjust recipes. So the fact that the sort of ratios are different and the balance is different is natural. I think there are a couple of things which are allowed. I think South Asia is definitely having a moment in many, many ways right now. And I think it's the culmination of a few things like to do with lifestyle, fashion, Bollywood, of course, cricket. I think all of this is helping sort of drive that interest and attention towards South Asia. And then food becomes a very natural sort of thing that goes along with all of this.
Yeah.
And it's actually not very dissimilar to what has happened with Korean food in the last 10 years. K-pop, music, drama, K-dramas.
Right.
Again, from a fashion and beauty point of view, the Korean companies, etc. And it truly took off in the West in the last, I think the 2010 to 2020 decade was very much to do with, especially I'm talking referencing America. And now you're suddenly finding the same parallel play out with Indian food. This year, Sema has been sort of voted the top restaurant in New York City by New York Times. They've been winning accolades all over. So that recognition is definitely coming now.
Yeah.
And hopefully that spurs more and more things to happen.
Yeah. In terms of running a restaurant, it's not sexy. It looks sexy, but it's not sexy.
Correct.
Tell me about the key elements. You talked about the hygiene. First, you have to get that right. After a person is seated, the hospitality.
Yeah, so I think those are the semantics of running a restaurant. I think the core is like the people, right? As again, cliched as it may sound, it truly is. At the end of the day, if you are not taking care of the team, they are not going to be in a position to take care of the guests. And that focus on being able to take care of them, truly, truly critical to be able to run a restaurant for a long time. I think that truly is what brings that to the fore.
But people is a challenge now, like retaining people.
Sure.
keeping-
Always has been. Always has been.
But now with so many restaurants and so many sort of catering companies, I mean, food has exploded on every level in Bombay,
Sure.
right? How do you retain people? Like, I would imagine real estate is obviously a big challenge, but people is the next big challenge or equally a challenge, right?
Yeah.
On some
It
level.
is, and we are constantly thinking about it. Like I think, which is where my reference to culture comes in again and again. I think we are very much focused on making Hungering a great place for people to want to come to work and then stay and work. And I think we have such a diverse group now, where so many of the ideas now come from the team itself. Like it's not just, it never was just Yash, me, Floyd, Hussain coming up with ideas, but now more so that it is truly. Because we can't be there everywhere. So you are seeing, they are seeing trends play out, things play out, which they are bringing back to the ideation stage. And I think at the end of the day, as culture, it means that you're constantly thinking about like, how do you make this a better experience for someone to be working with you?
Yeah.
And that's what allows for that retention to naturally happen over a period of time. Because what are the two things you, as in I can speak for myself, like you want to be financially secure, and two, you want to come to work with the people around you. And if you kind of solve for both, and both need to be solved for, then hopefully you have a sort of structure that allows for people to want to stay and work for you and more people to come and work for you.
How important is fundraising now for you? You've done some fundraising.
We've done, and we've got so amazing investors who've supported, like I was saying earlier, supported us through the pandemic, etc. It's obviously important, but I feel we are also in the day and age where the misnomer now is like you've raised a round and suddenly you have succeeded. Frankly speaking, money wants to make more money. So you better be ready for what that entails and what that asks for to be able to actually. So I think, is it a necessary part of the business? Of course, cash flow management, all of that is important. But is it the heart of it? No, I don't think so.
Of course. Yeah. And if that becomes the heart of it, you lose sight of the food.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And why you...
at the end of the day, the guests and the product is what makes it makes the core of what truly is beautiful about what we do.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, before you had Bombay Sweet Shop, I mean, I'll tell you, because I live in a home where we discuss stocks, and stocks are a big, I mean, you could say, I'll make my money multiply and put in the stock market.
Sure.
Or put in, you've chosen food.
Correct.
which is challenging and doesn't have the kind of returns
Correct.
that a lot of other areas do. So therefore, there is love and passion.
Absolutely.
Apart from
It is satisfying that part of oneself as well for it to make sense.
yeah. Um, okay, sustainability. I think you're working a lot more with farmers now as well, or
We've always worked with farmers.
Yeah.
I think sustainability is one of those things. So with everything we do, one of the things we always ask is like, what's the context?
Yeah.
So in India, the context is like very different from what the sort of traditional narrative around sustainability or farm to table, etc. means. I think we ask ourselves the question of what is sustainability to mean to us as citizens of this city?
yeah.
So to that effect, we run something called the Independence Day Dawat, where for the last 10 years, every 15th August, we join all the tables at Bombay Canteen, and we serve the thali of India on a banana leaf. So usually thali is regional. We said, let's serve the thali of India. And the kind of inspiration behind doing all of this was Independence Day had become just another holiday. Like to us, if we were truly going to be a restaurant that celebrated India, we wanted to do something on Independence Day, but also bring back that sense of community around it. And you can come in, eat what you want, pay what you want. And all of it goes towards helping a cause that we believe in. And over the last decade, we believed in many things, from education to farmer livelihoods to helping support marginal sort of families in rural Maharashtra. But last year we took this call that, to your point on sustainability, like we are all complaining about the environment, we're complaining about like the pollution in the city. What can we actually do about it? On one level, we have a voice, which we should use, but two, also let's support great work that's happening. So we are now working with Nature Re, which is part of the RPG Foundation. And actually, one of the first projects should be going live end of this month or next month, where we've sort of funded a park in Worli, which is part of this beautiful project that Nature Re is running, where is to create this green corridor throughout Mumbai. And it comes from the belief that we need to be helping local flora and fauna sort of navigate its way through Bombay.
The concrete jungle.
Through the concrete jungle, for it to sort of get reinvigorated.
But my other question is, do you feel that the produce, like I question the produce every day. Like I think I'm feeding my family good produce, vegetables, pushing vegetables,
Sure.
that whole thing. But I'm questioning the sort of,
Supply chain,
I really am.
sure.
And I feel like from when I grew up to what it is now, there's been a huge drop.
Sure.
Why?
So again, I'm not an expert in the supply chain side of things, but I will take an educated guess to that. I feel there is a certain demand for certain things. Like when I grew up mostly, like I was saying, in Delhi.
Yeah.
You ate certain things only in certain seasons. It grew for that flavor in that certain season. I remember you used to eat something as simple as gobi usually in the winter, or the Delhi carrot, like the carrots were like, it just had a different flavor then. So I think there's been a big move away from that. Now things are being grown through the year because there's demand for it through the year. That could be one aspect of
So you
it.
think seasonality is so important?
Yeah, and actually that became one of the biggest
Yeah.
cruxes of Bombay Canteen, that we wanted to celebrate that seasonality. So
Because you do a lot of seasonal dishes.
Absolutely. So
Like
we
when
change-
ponk comes into...
Yeah, so we change our menu 3 times a year
Yeah.
to celebrate exactly that.
Yeah.
So I think that, and I think other aspects of the supply chain in terms of just how long it's gotten, when it's picked to when you're eating it, where it's growing, all of those things then make an eventual difference to the quality you're eating.
Who do you think's got it right in India in the restaurant business, outside of you?
I think many people have gotten it right. I think we wouldn't be here if the likes of Indian Accent, etc., hadn't sort of laid the groundwork on what modern Indian food could be. Similarly, Riaz and all have shown how it is to scale in this country. So I feel many people get it right, and I think everyone's doing it with their own point of view, and I think that's the beauty of this business at the end of the day.
What is deconstruction in gastronomy? I've said the word gastronomy. I don't know what the hell it means.
It shouldn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I think they sound great on marketing material, so therefore it's used a lot. as in nothing needs to be deconstructed.
Like deconstructive pani puri, where there's puri separate. The
But isn't that how we
ingredient-
always ate it? It was always deconstructed.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's one of those things which catch on,
Yeah.
and then they stick around
Yeah.
for a long time when they shouldn't.
You know, as an Indian, I have a love affair with food.
Right.
I think we all have a love affair with food, you know, and it takes us back to how we grew up. Like I remember sitting with a thali with my family, and there used to be long meals, and no one could get up till the thali is done with, and all of that. And I think what you've done is take that notion of Indian food and nostalgia, and you've turned it on its head to fit the modern India and modern
And that was the
Indian
hope.
needs.
That was the hope.
You know?
Because at the end of the day, see, there is this notion of authenticity, right? But who is to say what is authentic?
Yeah.
And our hope and dream genuinely is that we are creating traditions of tomorrow today, is the way we like to put it, right? Hopefully people who've grown up with food from Bombay Canteen or Pedro, Bombay Sweet Shop are like, that's what I grew up eating, therefore I want this. That would be amazing.
And I think that sort of sums up your 5-year plan.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Lastly, if you had to describe what food means to you, you can give it to me in 2 or 3 adjectives, or you can give it to me in a line.
I think food is life. It's emotion. It's sort of as corny as it sounds, it feeds your soul.
I think we're going to be great friends from now on.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sameer.
Yeah.
This was lovely. Thank
Lovely
you.
to be here.